Tell us about cases when you saw someone's life destroyed in one day. At our graduation party, a guy the first knew found out that he was going to become a father soon. He was 17, and he felt terrible about this news. Once, for a holiday, we organized a family gathering with all our relatives. Everyone had arrived, except for my cousin. We all started joking about his lateness. His parents were also chuckling. They texted him, saying they were very upset that he was late and all that. It turned out that on his way here, someone hit him on the head, and he died. Like in freaking movies, the police knocked on our door to inform the family of what happened. I will never forget how that news morally shattered all of us. I play poker. Once, in a casino, I saw a guy place about 10,000 on the roulette. He bet on red and lost. The guy was simply devastated. Later that evening, a player at our table said he heard that guy crying in the parking lot, talking on the phone with his wife, and trying to explain why he spent their money. She yelled at him in response and declared she wanted a divorce. Once, the bank director where I worked fired one of his executive managers. "Pack your stuff, clear your desk, you're fired," he said in front of all the employees. The director was furious, and this guy was completely shattered. Later, the boss explained to us that this guy had given his login and password to his girlfriend from another branch. She, in turn, used this login and others while scheming with credit cards. The police caught her, but there was no evidence against our poor fired guy, so they just decided to fire him on the spot. Obviously, apart from losing his job, he was also blacklisted from all jobs related to banks and finances. An 18-year-old guy tried to steal a couple of bottles of Hennessy from my store. When I tried to stop him, he swung a bottle at me and even touched me, though I managed to dodge, so the blow was glancing and didn't really hurt me. As a result, he was charged with assault and robbery. The guy got sentenced for robbery with violence and lost the right to custody of his child. And always this damn Hennessy. I've seen 4 or 5 liquor store robberies. Grab and run type. Not everyone on the floor. This is a robbery. And they always grabbed this crappy third-rate cognac. My buddy got caught with drugs. There was a raid, and they caught him with enough weed to fill half a minivan. Most people measure weed in grams, some in ounces, some in pounds. But there's also this guy who measures it in minivans. As a family relationship consultant, I often see how one confession from one partner literally destroys the life, future self-esteem of the other. It hurts like hell. A guy we went to school with died with his sister in a car accident. They were driving in a car behind their parents' car, who were taking the older sister to her first day of college. The parents turned off and never saw the kids' car behind them again. Eventually, they found both kids dead in the accident. I remember working with a guy, he was 16, when suddenly a call came. His father, mother, brother, and sister went to pick up a new family car. The father entered a turn at high speed and drove straight into the underside of a bridge. In a matter of seconds, the guy lost his entire family. And the only reason he wasn't with them was that he was at work. We were gaming online with a buddy when suddenly, through the microphone, I heard a knock on his door. His parents came into his room to tell him that he was adopted and that they were getting a divorce. 2 such news at once. There were no emotional pauses or anything like that. As soon as his parents left the room, the guy just burst into tears in the mic. He was utterly shattered. Well, at least a few times a month, we had to care for a family that found out in one day that their child had cancer. Terrible news, completely life-changing. I spent a lot of time distracting the kids with board games and coloring books while their parents talked to the doctors, cried, and then gathered strength and continued to do something. I knew a guy who, within 24 hours, found out that his wife of 7 years was pregnant by someone else. Plus, she filed for divorce on the same day. and planned to keep their house. She was the primary signer on the mortgage because the guy had a poor credit history. When I was about 13, I stood on a hill at a playground, chatting with my best friend. Suddenly, we saw a girl riding a bike without a helmet, which turned out to be unfortunate because the bike slipped from under her, and she crashed headfirst into a post. I was too young to understand for sure, but I'm almost certain she died on the spot. Wear a helmet. Yes, I was a witness and a direct participant in this. My boss was filming and storing CP. It hit me hard, and I talked to a friend who was a cop in a neighboring town, asking him what could be done. He reported it to the chief of police in the town where it was happening. 2 days later, the most authoritative cop I had ever seen walked into our store and asked everyone for their documents. He cuffed my boss and put him in the car. You should have seen his face when I was called to testify at the jury hearing. Edit. This whole story seems to paint me in a good light. I never talked about this to anyone except my wife, who supported my decision to become an unemployed student with a family and a mortgage. Thank you for the honest and kind words. And those of you who say I'm a hero, no guys, I'm an ordinary person. The real heroes in this thread are those who survive such harsh situations and keep living. Maybe it's worth extending a helping hand to some of them and asking if everything is okay. Let them know that they are an important and valuable part of our community. There were also many questions about how I found out about this. A victim of violence approached me and asked for help. I helped. I work in a hospital. This happened several years ago. They said we were expecting casualties with serious injuries. A drunk driver crashed into a minivan carrying a grandfather, an aunt, and 3 children under 10. The aunt survived. The children were brought to our hospital. 1 died on arrival. We fought for the lives of the other 2 but couldn't save them. They were kept on life support until the parents arrived to say goodbye. I will never forget how the mother sang lullabies to them. And one day, she lost all her children and her father. One early morning, my neighbor knocked on my door. We hadn't met before. He kindly introduced himself and warned me that there might be a lot of people and cars around the house during the day. The reason was that the night before, all 3 of his children had died in an accident. A week ago, my friend's boss was in a terrible accident. Today she was told that she is completely paralyzed below the waist. And today she was also informed that her husband died for a reason unrelated to the accident. I don't know exactly what he died from, but in one moment, the woman who had a happy life with her soulmate lost the ability to walk and her life partner. My stepfather's life collapsed the day his son, my brother, died. He couldn't cope with the loss, couldn't understand that it hurt all of us as well, and sank deeper into drinking, becoming more aggressive. A couple of years later, he made my mother choose between him or me. I had to watch her make the toughest decision. She left her husband, the love of her life. My mom and I hardly talked afterward. She made the right choice for the wrong reason. She told me straight to my face that she regretted having me. And my stepfather, as far as I know, is still getting drunk and living alone. My mother is lonely and lives regretting her life. As for me, I'm still trying to heal the scars, but overall, I'm okay. Also, I sometimes think about my mother's words. I don't take the blame she tried to put on me. I don't feel like a mistake. I know that her feelings and problems are not my fault. I know that I am here for a reason, even if I don't fully understand what it is. I had a former colleague who was an intern in general surgery. He had just started his 5th and final year of training. One day, in the middle of an operation, the police came for him at the hospital. They pulled him out of the operating room, right in his surgical gown, and arrested him on the spot in front of everyone. He had to walk in shame through the entire hospital, in handcuffs, past all the interns and hospital workers. It turned out that his ex-wife had reported to the police, claiming that he molested their children. The children also testified. We were all in complete shock. He was a very nice, cheerful guy. No one would ever think he was capable of something like that. It turned out, a few months later, it was revealed that the children's testimonies were obtained under pressure from his ex-wife, who had fabricated everything. It wasn't the first time she tried to frame him, but this case was definitely the most successful. The guy's career and life were ruined. My older sister and I grew up as best friends. One day, she didn't come home from work. I was 16 then, and she was 22. I woke up to the sound of my parents clattering around the house, turning on lights, making noise, and starting to panic. A little later, the cops called our house and said they found my sister's car. It was parked in the middle of a block, damaged with the driver's side door open. They also found one of her shoes in the middle of the street. The next morning, my sister still hadn't returned. She worked at a bar. That night, she left work, and some guy followed her. He rammed her car, and when she got out to exchange insurance information, he overpowered her, put her in his truck, and drove away. That night, he tortured and raped her. He kept her captive all night and the entire next day. The following day, my sister managed to escape and ran to the nearest house, banging on the doors. The homeowners let her in and called 911, explaining that a girl had been attacked and beaten. They took her to the hospital, from where they contacted us. She had 2 broken ribs. Her entire face was bruised, black eyes, and scratches all over her body. After that, I never got my sister back. She survived the attack, but now she suffers from panic attacks and anxiety. She can't go outside alone. She drinks a lot and is afraid to move out from our mom's house to live on her own. I don't know. I remember looking at her, how we laughed, watched movies, jumped on the trampoline, and she would take us to eat at different diners, how we listened to music together. Since then, my older sister has never really come back. I will always love her, but this incident broke my heart. In one day, her life fell apart. Watch other videos on our channel.